Welcome to my channel. This is JC Rock and Metal Reviews. My name is John, and today I have a new album review by Dee Snider. The album is called Leave a Scar. But before I begin, if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. I do rock and metal reviews, rankings, and more. I remember Dee Snider from the band Twisted Sister, and although I've never met Dee myself, I do feel a personal connection with the band. Twisted Sister was like the first metal band that I ever knew about. When I was growing up on Long Island in the 70s, Twisted Sister was touring the clubs. My father was a butcher, and he worked with one of the drummers at the time. His name was Joey Brighton, or at least that was his stage name. My father even got the band to sign a piece of paper for me and my brother. I do have a short video on that I did a few months ago, and I will link it at the end of this video if you want to watch that. Dee Snider, he even went to high school in the same town where my grandmother lived. And I even have an aunt who was in a band like many years ago, and they recorded in the same studio. She even told me one time that, she met the band. So, I mean, this band brings back lots of memories, and here I am doing an album review almost 40 years later, and the lead singer of the first metal band I ever had heard about. And this is just a very special type of album for me. So anyway, let me talk about it. So anyway, this album is a follow-up to For the Love of Metal, and it continues in the same style. It's just basically straightforward heavy metal. I can't really pinpoint a specific subgenre. I mean, it's a little bit of thrash, maybe a little bit of death metal, a little bit of glam. But I mean, to me, it's just basically just heavy metal. I mean, like the last album, the songs are very heavy. He does have a few guests. I'll talk about those. And this time, Dee is accompanied by Nick Belmore on drums, Charlie Belmore on guitars, Nick Petrino on guitars, and Russell Pizzuto on bass. The album was produced by Jamie Josta of Hatebreed, and let me talk about the songs. There are 12 songs with a runtime of 46 minutes. So the first song is called I Gotta Rock Again, and you probably think it's like a sequel to I Wanna Rock from Twisted Sister, but not really. This is a much heavier song. It has some thrashy riffs, really fast drum beat, and these vocals sound just as good as ever. This one has a really great blistering solo, and this is a really great way to start the album. Next is All or Nothing More, and this one hits a little harder than the first song. The riffs are a little bit chunkier, the vocals are a little bit more aggressive. The song does have more of a melodic chorus and a really killer isolated bass part after about the 1 minute and a half mark. The background vocals almost remind me of kind of an amped up version of a Twisted Sister song. So this is really another good one. The next song is called Down But Never Out. This is the third song. I think this was released as a single. I think there's a video for it. This is a really great metal anthem. It's one of those concert, one of those songs that you would like to hear live. It's a heavy song, has some really aggressive vocals, and on this Dee says, I pride myself on the fact that throughout the decades, my music has always tried to not only push back against all oppressors, now in this case COVID-19, but also lift people up and encourage them to fight back. Down but never out is a perfect example of this ethos. So that's a quote from Dee Snider, and that's just basically the overall tone of this song. So I really like this one a lot. Next is Before I Go, and this one has a little more of an 80s feel. You're gonna kind of feel the 80s decade in a few of these songs. One's maybe a little thrashier, but it's kind of like a Twisted Sister song, but a little heavier. The big arena style vocals, there's heavy power chords, really cool. And it's a lot more melodic than the other songs, so I like this one a lot. Next is Open Season, and the album does start to get heavy again. This one is a little closer to classic thrash metal. The vocals are very bold, really great use of backing vocals. Remind me a little bit of that band Overkill. Lots of heavy power chords, lots of cool riffs. Some of the riffs reminded me of that Painkiller era, Judas Priest, that heavy speed metal riffs. The song has a really cool breakdown at the 2.5 minute mark, and this is another good one. Next is Silent Battles. This one's a little different. I think it has more of an 80s progressive metal style. It just reminds me a little bit of classic Queensryche. These vocals are very powerful in this one. I really like the lyrics in this one, and they are very uplifting and motivational. Next is Crying for Your Life. And this one, it is a little slower. I guess You could call it like an 80s style power ballad, but I don't know if you want to put a label on it. But has some clean guitars in the beginning, has some heavy riffs that come a little later on. It's a little darker, a little heavier type of song, and it reminds me like a little of like the Captain Howdy song from Twisted Sister's Stay Hungry album. Kind of has that like darker tone in the vocals. So that's a pretty good one. Next is In for the Kill. This one has more of like a melodic bass and guitar intro. Has some pretty cool galloping guitars in the verse section. I really like the clean guitar riffs, kind of played along with the bass guitar. This is a pretty cool like traditional heavy metal song, and it does have some really killer riffs. Next is Time to Choose, and this is the one with Corpse Grinder from Cannibal Corpse. You know, he provides these like heavy like guttural vocals that kind of go along well with like these like very like powerful vocals. You know, this could be like one of like the heaviest songs, but it is still very melodic. But Corpse Grinder's like vocal delivery does kind of like make this like a little heavier, kind of give it like a little slightly more of like a death metal feel. Next song is called S.H.E, which is S.H.E. Still very heavy. This one has a little bit more reminiscent of like modern pop. I mean, the heavy guitars are still there. It's just like a little bit more like polished, I would say. Still a good song, just a little more melodic and accessible than the other ones. Track 11 is called The Reckoning. The album does get heavy again. Has some very like chunky and meaty riffs, some melodic lead guitar lines. This one's a little heavier, a little faster than the other ones. And this is another pretty good one. And the last song is called Stand, and this is more of like a ballad. I guess you can call it that, but it's still one of those like darker ballads. These vocals are very powerful and filled with emotion. This is just one of those like heavy power ballads, but the heavy guitars are there. They do come in halfway through the song, and I really like the vocals and the lyrics. They're very like uplifting and motivational. So in conclusion, it is a very good follow-up for The Love of Metal. I think The Love of Metal might be a little, maybe a little better. I'm not really sure. It's still very early for me to make that decision. But this one is, you know, like almost on par as the previous album. There are still a lot of songs that are like reminiscent of modern metal. I did like get a little bit of like an 80s feel on a couple more of these songs, but I will give it an 8 out of 10. It is very enjoyable, and I am interested to see how this one grows on me after I give it a few more listens. So that's it. Let me know what you think in the comments section. I will post that video where I showed the paper where Twisted Sister signed for me and my brother. I did a video on that. I posted right over there. And I also did a Twisted Sister ranking video, kind of like when my channel was fairly new. I'll put that over there. Tomorrow and Sunday I have 2 collabs. I have one with Josh Keesh. We're going to be talking Iron Maiden. And one with Brian from AYBL Maine, talking the Scorpions. So that will be Saturday and Sunday, and I will post those in the morning for those of you in America, or maybe in the evening for those of you in Europe. And that is it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.